Here we go with episode 7 of the Mike Spot Podcast. I'm Chris, senior producer and lead designer of 80s Mania Wrestling and Modern Mania Wrestling.
And I'm Josh, quality assurance and associate designer for 80s Mania Wrestling and Modern Mania Wrestling.
And I'm Aaron, narrative designer for 80s Mania Wrestling and Modern Mania Wrestling.
All right, guys. So last episode, we had some fun at the beginning. We revealed our Mount Rushmore of 80s Mania characters. Seemed like people had some fun listening to it. We definitely had some fun, discussing it. And we wanted to do it again. And this time we're going to do it for the Modern Mania roster, right? So
definitely. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. I guess this time I'll kick it off. So I'll say again, like I said last episode, that my perspective here is not necessarily from the player perspective, but more from, I guess, the creator perspective. I've got the history in mind here, right? So in 2019-ish is when we started putting the characters together for the 2020 release, if I'm not mistaken, of Modern Mania Wrestling, the original game, before GM. So, I'm definitely looking at that base roster, the initial roster, and that's kind of where I'm pulling from. Like, that's where my head goes to. So, to kick things off, I'm going to start with Monstro. So, for me, when we were putting together this initial roster, I looked at 80s Mania and I looked at Dr. B, right? Who's the starting world champ. And I don't know, there's something about that sort of dominating big bad character being the initial champion. So for Modern Mania, I was sort of looking for a character that could be the equivalent of that and maybe kind of kick it up a notch, right? So again, back in 2019, we had some headlines in the news and we had some huge big box office movies that were coming out. In my opinion, a really nice merge of big bad concepts. And one of those characters that just kind of stands out, Monstro's number one for me. All right, so next, I knew when we were putting Modern Mania together as well that with modern wrestling in mind, that the ladies division had to have a big part, more so than the 80s game. I knew we wanted to, similar to the Monstro thing, I knew I wanted a character to kind of anchor that division, to kind of be ready-made to be a main eventer. Another goal was to have Legacy from 80s Mania reappear in Modern Mania. I wanted to tie the games together in that kind of lore way. So Carolina Strutter.
Yep.
Important to the game, important to bringing the 80s Mania legacy, the Jet Set vibe, the whole thing. So she's definitely, for me, on the Mount Rushmore. Thirdly here, one of my favorite original characters, right? Someone who's not necessarily based on anyone or anything specific, yet is one of my favorite pieces of art and is just a really interesting character, and that's Son of Samoa. Again, I love the art, I love the name, but there's not much more to say than the fact that I enjoy his originality, and it was really a fun thing to kind of have the Samoan influence in the game based on the fact of how important that is to pro wrestling in general. So Son of Samoa is in there for me. And finally, so similarly to the way our boy Arizona Chance kind of holds down 80s Mania, we want a nomadic, mysterious floater on the roster, and that's, of course, Gunslinger. He doesn't come from sort of like the wrestling influence for me, comes more from a pop culture influence for me, but I do think he fits that role really well, of the sort of mysterious, loner, heroic guy. So, there we go. There's my 4.
Nice. Great choices, I think. No overlap on my list, but it was some close calls there. Some close calls for sure.
Boy.
And some honorable mentions.
You had...
Who do you got, Josh?
Yeah.
Who do I got? Let's see. So mine is a little bit different because it's more about from a player perspective, I think. And I think that, I've played this game a lot for a long time. I've watched characters grow from openers all the way to legendaries, and number one on that list, people I love to watch go from the start of the card to the end is Maniac Murphy. I'm a huge fan of Maniac Murphy. I'm not even sure what it is. Something about, I don't even know. Something about the design of the character, the factions that he's in, and then also just like the team with Mad Manson. I use them as a hold down for my my tag division, whether they're Hijack and Intruder or whether they're the Soldiers of Fortune. They're everywhere. So trust me, if you look at my title history, it's Maniac Murphy's probably held all of them multiple times. So definitely number one on there for me, Maniac Murphy. Number 2 actually is my one of my favorite. It kind of goes with number 1, but it's one of my favorite kind of fan pairings or player pairings, player tag teams that I've made, and that's with Aspen Northstar, right? So a very versatile character for me, and he kind of goes back to what Chris was saying about some legacy characters. He's got he's a second gen wrestler. He's got a great look to him, and then he's got some alts that just like totally flip it around. Like the Asp alt and Starblade and things like that. He just has so much that he can do for me. So whether he's rocking a tag with Domingo or Zeno, whether he's leading a faction with Soldiers of Fortune, he's doing all kinds of things in my Fed. So he's always got a spot on my roster for sure, and he's definitely got a face on that Mount Rushmore. Another one is a guy. He was actually my first legendary, and someone that just in my brain he's like lived such an amazing career that he just kind of sits back and kind of does. He comes in for special matches, and that's Yoshimuro. Okay, so he it was one of my first picks that I got from the store. And then he also became my first legendary just because I feel like I can write him into any story. I feel like he, has that presence that not a whole lot of wrestlers have in the game. I think that he's again so versatile. I can use him all the way up and down the card, and I think that's what I value most out of Yoshimuro. So he's had 5-star matches galore. He's had storylines everywhere up and down the card, and he's just a great character for me. The conductor, I love him.
Cool.
And rounding out my last spot, I was going to put Carolina Strutter. But Aaron made a good point that maybe we can someday do another Mount Rushmore of the top ladies characters. So I actually switched it up here, and this is a personal favorite of mine. Someone who actually got a rework, so that's interesting. I like the original too. I like the new one, but that's Monsieur Auteur.
Nice.
All right, how about that one? How about that? How about that as a pick?
That is a pick.
So my longest reigning world champion ever. Okay. Monsieur Auteur. Now, imagine those storylines, if you will, for a second. And some really interesting stuff there. And I just love the design of the guy. I love El Técnico Rojo. I love Cedric Leclerc. He's just all around some great, great characters. So he'll round out my list for my modern Mount Rushmore. But you know what? It's the list that's always evolving. Let's be honest.
Right on.
That's fair. I know we all kind of geek out whenever we're creating things when it comes down to the little nuances of things like names and stuff. And Monsieur Auteur and El Técnico Rojo are fantastic ones. I'm still very proud that we created those. My Rushmore. So Chris took 3 of my 4.
We had no overlap last time. We were bound to have it this time.
Yes, last time I went a little bit in a I guess an unorthodox direction, I think I'd say, with my choices. Right. This one I tried to stay a little bit more traditional, like what I would presume. But also, I mean, it's still true to me, but I stuck with a more standard definition of like the best of the best kind of thing. So since you've already said plenty and most of my explanation for 3 of the 4, I pivoted a little bit, and I'm going to pick a few other ones. But just for the record, as mentioned, I decided on holding off on adding any ladies to this list in the event that we do one later. So it wasn't Carolina, but Monstro, Gunslinger, Son of Samoa, fantastic characters. To your point, I definitely think there's something that gives extra credibility to a character being there from the start. And so, and so I leaned a little bit into that kind of thing for some of the picks that I chose. And the first one is another thing that Chris mentioned, particularly with Carolina, is legacy, or in this case, my first pick here is not someone who has, a family member or a student in the game, but actually a person who translated into the game himself. And in a very rare case, because most of those characters, you're kind of getting the older veteran version of them. You're getting that with this guy too. But in my opinion, he actually levels up to pure, like, super level. And that's Grand Manga. I think that dude, first of all, he's leading the Greater Realm, which is pulling together the ultimate good guy team, basically.
Very true.
Second of all, I honestly believe that character is leveled up from where he was in 80s. Also, it's the first time in, again, he goes back to 80s. It's the first time you see him with the Forsaken, which is a bizarre and fantastic character to me. that where you take this like practically immortal and like heroic character and you just turn him on his head entirely. And so I'm a huge fan of that character, and I love what we did with him in Modern. So he's my first choice to add to this. Another one that I love, and a lot of it is because of the original in-game lore, is a dude who's a little bit the flip side of that, and that's Black Plague. Plague showed up where Monstro is your first like monster bad. Black Plague always felt the most pure evil to me. He's the villain of villains. And and if you recall, anybody who's been playing the game for a while, when this game first came out, the original Modern, Black Plague was the only character in the game who didn't have alts. He was pure mystery. And so we got to have fun for a very long time, just allowing that to sit and allowing players to, use their imaginations or come up with guesses or whatever. And so during that time, I feel like Plague took on, really a life of his own as a character. And he stands out. He's leading the Axis. They're up to all kinds of nefarious shenanigans. And so I think you've got a great character there. Another one of those is another guy who very recently got a bit of a rework, and that I was hesitant on at first, but came around to, and now I'm a big fan of, and that's Slapstick. Slapstick is horrifying, and where Plague feels evil in one way, Slapstick, he carries with him that kind of psychotic element and just pure danger. Especially coming out of Ice Pick, I was always a big fan of Ice Pick Dominic, both for the rhymes and the character himself. And then him just upping his game and becoming Slapstick was fantastic. He's got weapons. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
So he's a dude who's always going to be a big problem. And then this one might be a bit of a surprise, but this is just pure personal love. As a character I've always enjoyed, mostly on the visual. I think his visual is so much fun, and that is Void.
Cool.
Yes. We have Komodo, who I also love Komodo. But once he bumps up to Void level, to me I don't know if he is necessarily like main event legend style like some of the others, per se. I kind of treat him a little bit as such, or at least pretty darn close. But he just, the look on the guy's face in the artwork and everything kind of hanging off of him, he's just such a unique visual. And I think one of his alts even is like practically like fluorescent or like glow in the dark almost looking. He's
we went pretty wild with that design.
For sure.
He's one of the wilder designs in the game, and that's a big thing for me that I appreciate about him. So I'm gonna go with those guys as my Mount Rushmore.
Very cool. Great. No, I love this, man. I love this conversation. I think we should keep doing this because it's so cool to kind of be able to express your own opinions and then listen to other people's opinions. Because as I'm listening to you guys, I'm holding back, jumping in with all sorts of thoughts and and opinions and stuff. So it's fun. Hopefully, you guys out there listening are enjoying it. And just like last time, we encourage you get in that comment section and leave your Rushmore for Modern Mania. We want to check that out. So
absolutely. I'm sure everyone has a lot of different thoughts.
Yeah.
And with that, let's jump to a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll hear from Aaron with some 80s Mania.
A tag team extravaganza! Let the battle royale begin! Looks like Hawk is about to drop in on the fabulous ones. Uh-oh, the Baron's after the animal. But the animal has other plans. Will you look at this? Rick Martel is throwing Steve Kern right out of the ring. Oh my! And the Hawk has Stan Lane all tied up, and he's mad!
The Battle Royale playset comes complete with 6 figures, referee, and official wrestling ring from Remco.
And we are back. Aaron, tell us a little bit about our recent 80s Mania updates.
All right. We have had 3 new additions to 80s Mania Wrestling since our last episode. So, jumping into our September and October updates here. All 3 alts, by the way. And first off, we have Sonny Osmond. Now, Hal Sand is actually a very recent character to the game himself. He only debuted earlier this year. To me, he's honestly one of my favorite characters we've ever made. I think Hal is a beaut all the way around.
Yeah, I think he's regarded as one of our best sort of parody characters. Just conceptually, it just seems like people really enjoy that character. We do. I mean, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And beyond that, immediately, basically, when we introduced him, the players let us know that he was going to need an alt sooner or later. And so we decided to go ahead and just go with sooner.
Yeah.
So one thing is when we're creating characters, we like to look at the big picture, the whole landscape of the game, to sort of see what areas we can quote shore up. I say for House Ant. And a great thing about Sonny existing in this universe now is that after the Neon Express ends, Jesse Wilde, he really has never had a whole lot to do beyond his feud with the High Flying Kid, where frankly he's just kind of supremely overmatched. So we've talked for years about giving Jesse something. And I think that Sonny Osmond was a great choice to be that something, to add a new tag team to the ranks carrying in, to add a fun character for him to play off of. So we had some fun with the name. We had some fun adding a bit of personality to the character. And if you read it carefully, you may even catch a little hint as to Sonny's future and what happens with Hal later on in our chronology here. So I enjoy him as an addition. I love the fact that we made a character and an alt within the same calendar year. Again, that's a very rare thing. In that same update, we also added Serenity. Now, main event ladies in the game are few and far between. Serpentina Stone joined as a main eventer a couple of years ago. And in my opinion, what we've done here is actually taken a main event lady and made her even stronger. So, to me, Serenity is a pretty special character. A little behind the scenes, if I can pull back the curtain a little bit, we originally, when we were tossing around names for this character, we were originally considered naming her Serendipity, which in itself I find actually a little bit serendipitous, because whenever we started promoting her, players started pointing out layers to what they were kind of seeing in this character that I didn't even originally see, even as someone who helped create the character. So that ended up making her work out even better, in my opinion, than originally anticipated. Because now when I look at Serenity, I see this perfect overlap, really, of influences that mesh together really well. Plus, I love her feud with Kit Pistol. Just throwing that out there in case players haven't unlocked that one yet. I mean, I love anything to do with Kit Pistol, but I especially love this particular one. Yeah. She's a personal fave. I also want to note something cool about Serenity, is that she has a manager affiliation. You know, sometimes it feels like the managers get a little bit overlooked in the game. So anytime we have a chance to boost one of them and make that association, we like to take advantage of it. So if her main event stats aren't already enough for her, hook her up with Hacker, and you might put her a little bit over the top.
Yep.
And then moving on to October, we added something that we've been excited about and kind of loosely working on for some time, and that is Juju Jones. Again, Judo entered the game summer of 2023. Juju himself here, he's definitely a tough guy. He's a bad dude. So we decided that the move was to make him even badder. He's very much still a dangerous fighter, but as a character now, he's been kind of exploring some other interests that I think make him more layered. Plus, and frankly, his look just leveled up, which is always excellent. I'd say Juju is keeping his style game strong.
All right, so if I could just jump in, I do want to mention and put out a thanks to player David O'Hanlon. We've mentioned him on previous episodes as a really involved player in our community. David did take the Judo Jones concept and, have a ghoulish influence, let's say, in there and presented it in that fun package. And it did inspire us. We thought, oh, well, we wanted to do something similar, and Judo Jones might be sort of the vehicle with which to do this. So we found that to be a really fun idea. Reached out to David. I asked if it was okay if we kind of, took his seed of an idea and kind of ran with it. And he said, of course you could. And just another reminder how awesome our community is, because we see the stuff you guys put out there. We see the ideas. And man, if it inspires us, we'll always kind of, try to reach out and ask permission and see if we're able to take your guys' ideas and actually expound upon them and get them into the game. It's always a pleasure doing that sort of thing.
As a fun little bonus, I will also mention, for anybody, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, or if you're a new player to the games in general, you notice Juju is our October update. One of our traditions for both 80s and modern is that around Halloween time, we're dropping ghoulies. It's the season, right?
No doubt.
Yep. So every year we're looking at that. And so this was a super fun one. I mean, some version of this character has been in the works for a while. And even his associations, the things you can do with him in the game, tend to be pretty ghoulie centric, and that's a lot of fun to me. I'm particularly excited for Juju to have a feud with Silver God, as I love a good battle of ghoulie weirdos, and I truly don't know whose mind games would win in that battle. Plus, another bonus to a card that's been around forever, Auntie Voodoo. I'm excited that we're able to expand her lore, and plus we're always excited to add power couples, basically, to boost your Valentine's Day massacre options. And you can never have too many of those. So get out there and do a little voodoo with these two. It's a creepy character, and it's a great one.
And with that on 80s, let's jump right into Modern Mania. Pete and Molly getting their long overdue updates. And both with some pretty great tag team specializations, so definitely be on the lookout for those awesome pairings. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Keepers. You got Panic's tag team with another one of the new jobber updates with his Sir Wallace, and I love the team. They're one of my favorite lower card tag teams, and honestly, they've captured a couple championships in my feds, so keep an eye out for them.
Everything Wally touches turns to gold.
It really does.
It's weird. It's
it always
crazy.
does. Yep, absolutely. Plus with
Sinclair,
he joins Underworld. That was a big part of creating him, was kind of finding that Underworld tie and kind of completing that faction up. So definitely one of my favorite jobber updates. But that's not to discount Molly. Molly had some awesome alts, some video game inspired alts, some pop culture stuff thrown in there.
Molly Mockingbird.
It's nice to have another member of Dystopia in there, and also a great costumed alt.
Molly of the Valley.
For those comic book fans out there, it's just a really versatile character that Molly has turned into.
We did, if I may hop in real quick, we dug so deep. We poured so much effort into kind of finding the perfect influence for each of the alts, and kind of digging into the lore of the influence and making sure we hit all these certain notes. It was a lot of fun crafting these, not just these two jobbers, but all the jobbers so far. And there's two left that haven't been touched yet, so be on the lookout for those eventually. But man, it's been a lot of fun exploring alt versions for these characters that have been around forever.
Absolutely. For one, players have been clamoring for something to be done with jobbers for a long time, so we're excited to begin kind of rolling those out. And then the fact that, now you have what started as the most nondescript characters in the entire game, and now they all evolve from that into, in my opinion, all of them so far that we've released, not even just these two, each now have three very distinct alternate personalities that you can work with. They're just, it's so cool to see them evolve in that way.
Right, and they're presented, of course, because they're starting as jobbers, their alts are openers, which to me is always kind of interesting, because there's so much room to grow. You get this brand new gimmick, but they're only at the opener level. So it just feels like, the sky's the limit, if you will, for some of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, my Wall Street Wally is grown to an upper mid card, so I'll keep you guys updated on Wally's status.
See, there's Wally again. Now Wally's taking over this episode, man. It's shout out to the Wally fans.
Wally
out there.
fans, we see you, yeah, for sure. Oh, well, that wasn't the only stuff that we had, though. Even on that update, we also added a new tag team. We had
Belle and Chanel
to dominate your ladies tag team division. We had some art updates there, and just some color changes, and they look like $1 million. So with October, going back to the Ghoulie stuff, we had Ghoulie Invasion here. Okay, a very frightening update with
Cousin Chuckles.
Zed, who internally I've been calling Zeddy Bear for a while, and then old Keziah Crux getting, in my opinion, a really, really big update. Coming into her own, becoming a real player in my fed. So some really awesome stuff. And let's not forget Cousin Chuckles. He comes in with
Chuck Miles.
He's got
Vagabond.
He's got some really, really cool stuff in there. The Bard and the Blacksmith is one of my favorite tag teams. Just like so much fluff in there, so much really cool meat in there for Vagabond, and just a really great update for Modern, and a lot of depth for these new characters, and it adds a lot to a lot of different characters, especially the Fright. The Fright, I think, now has a whole band of misfits to run with, and some tag teams, and I think that it just all around has made a really, really interesting update.
Yeah, again, pulling back the curtain a little bit, when we crafted the Fright, he had the fun 4 different versions, and we've got the Burly stuff and the Fright stuff, but initially Cousin Chuckles was to be his D alt. We did kind of get going in that direction, so much so that we even had art crafted for it. And those with a keen eye spotted that art in is it Burly's World?
Burly's World, yeah.
In the Burly's World skit, in the background, you can find that original Cousin Chuckles art. We went in a different direction because we kind of put a pin in that and said, you know what, we're going to kind of give that to a different character somewhere down the line. Turns out this past October, we did, release that. And of course, more and more layers came to be with that, but it is a fun thing to finally sort of close that loop, all the way back when we first were coming up with the Fright to finally kind of get Cousin Chuckles and his band of friends, I guess you'd say, into the game.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the Chuckles character, and the fact that, again, to your point, now we have Burly and Fright, and his entire world expanding broadly.
Yeah.
But then also just the way that this character, amongst his 4 versions, is able to incorporate so many different influences. He's not just operating as a complement to the Fright and that, but he's got a number of other layers to him that I think make him very versatile. Chuck Miles has a tag team that I'm quite excited about as well. So you can do a lot with this dude, and
for sure,
he became a very fun character to finalize.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Plus, that art just looks fantastic. So credit to James for that. I think that's just like a fantastic piece of art, and it goes so great with the updates to Zed and Keziah too. So props to Warner, props to James for that art, because it blew me away. I had it on the back as the background of my phone for the past month.
That's a good opportunity to just give props to our art team in general. We've got a few artists who work on both games, and man, everybody's just killing it recently. I'm pretty proud of 2024. We talked a lot about these different versions and gimmicks being very distinct, very, very intentionally distinct, and I think we've been on a nice roll with Modern doing that. The Jobbers kind of leading the way, and some of these other characters we just mentioned, but we couldn't do it without the artists. I mean, they're really obviously bringing these concepts to life, so shout out to them.
Yeah, great point.
You know what? Since we're talking shout out, why don't we just go segue right into the player shout out for this episode here. And this is one that I've had on my list for a while. I wanted to mention Francis Barry Leeming. Now, this is a player who I don't see him much in the community per se, but I've seen him for years and years as a follower of our games. Anytime we will drop a promo, he'll make a conscious effort to try to help us promote the game, and that's been noticed for quite some time. Really friendly guy. I've had a few interactions over the years, and it's always been a positive experience. And there are individual players over all this time that we've been making these games that have stood out to us behind the scenes, and Francis is one of those. So I wanted to give a shout out where it's deserved. So thank you for your years of support and all your positive intentions about sort of spreading the word about our games. We appreciate you.
Agreed.
And with that, I think it's time to do what is becoming one of my more favorite parts of the show. And that's where we talk about the new game. So we have some features that we're ready to reveal. Chris, what do you have for us this month?
All right, guys. So yeah, I know everyone's kind of been eagerly anticipating another episode of this podcast to get some more information about the new game, right? And we're happy to be able to do it. I think a good segue into this episode's discussion about the new game is to look at some of the user questions that were posed on last episode. So we had Jason Carrico 4073 ask about transferring coins from 80s Mania into the new game. We had editor VJAS ask about importing cards, rosters from the existing games into the new game. And any kind of question like this that is asking about carrying over stuff from 80s Mania Returns and Modern Mania GM into the new game, I can sort of answer with one sweeping answer, which is to say no. We're not carrying over directly any kind of currency or cards or collection or progress from the existing games. Again, we want to emphasize the new game is brand new. It's set in the Mania universe, right? And it's going to have all sorts of familiar characters and looks and gameplay and functionality and all that sort of stuff. But it is its own game, a new game in this universe. Now, that's not to say there won't be rewards for players who play our existing games. Rest assured, like if you've been with us, if you've been playing 80s Mania Returns for a while, or even just for a little bit, same with Modern Mania GM. If you've invested in those games and you've purchased things and you've unlocked things in those games, you're going to be rewarded in the new game. We haven't specifically figured out what it's going to be, but there will be a credit system. You will get, whether it's unlockables or currency or a jump start, whatever it may be, however we end up working that out. Like I said, players of our previous games will be rewarded in the new game. So there's that. Another question that was posed, Johnny Diamond 79 asked about, in the new game, is there an option to allow us to create our own feuds? Another reminder, the new game is what we're calling the 3.0 engine. And all that means is if 80s Mania is 1.0 and Modern Mania is 2.0, this is 3.0. Meaning we're building this one off of the most recent one. That's to say off of Modern Mania GM. Now, for those who play it, you guys know we do have a create your own feud system in that game, right? At the start of every in-game month, we have angle cards, we call them, where you can create a custom feud, a custom tag, and they last for the month. In fact, they can last more than the month if you just keep them there. Point is that yes, to answer your question in short fashion, yes, there will be ways to create your own feuds and tag teams, and of course factions. So now, let's talk a little bit more about the new game. So we mentioned artists a little bit earlier, and I would be remiss not to mention the great artist Rusty Shackles. Rusty is one of a few artists that's contributed awesome work to 80s Mania Returns over the last few years, and we're happy to officially announce that Rusty will be lead character artist for the upcoming new game, and he'll be drawing all the wrestlers, all the managers within, and that is going to give the game universe like a really cohesive look. And as we're huge fans of his style, it's going to give the game a really fresh, fantastic feel. Rusty also brings just an extra layer of creativity, where he's always adding little nuances to the character design and, helping with stuff that a lot of artists don't necessarily help with. So it's a blast working with him, and it's great to have him involved in the ground level design stages of this new game. It's just something we're really excited about. Now, if we want to talk a little bit more about game details themselves, one of many things that were mentioned last episode was the commentators. So there's going to be a new type of card in the new game, and they'll be played to enhance your show. So they'll have unique bonuses that they add to the show, and when you pair them, certain pairs, of course, when you pair them together, will have a little bit of an additional bonus. Sort of like how an official tag team would work, when they'll have a little bit higher bonus than your other standard tag teams. Commentary teams will work that way as well. They'll actually also provide a bit of on-screen commentary during the match animations. So for now, what we've got is it's going to be commentary via text, like via word bubbles, like in a comic book. But we are considering actual audio dialogue there too. So we'll see how much time we have and how tough that is to make happen. But It's a lot of fun when the commentators are on screen and calling the action. They've got unique phrases, and I think the inclusion of these types of characters is just going to add enhancement to the game, to like the pro wrestling vibe, and just add some more juice to watching your animated matches when you have that aspect on screen. Yeah, once you collect a few of the commentary cards, you'll be able to set default commentary teams to your shows. And regarding shows and booking shows, you'll now be able to, with the new game, pre-book the whole month. So in any order you want, you can book any segment on any week in any order. And we found, during testing, we found that it's such a great improvement in terms of being able to plan things ahead when you're booking, to have something come up in mind and then, hop ahead a few shows and plug in a main event match or what have you. Speaking of matches, we are finally going to bring in the long-awaited 4v4 match into the game. That's like an ancient day one request from players that we are so glad to finally get into the game. So tons of exciting potential with the 4v4 matchup. And think about that for a sec. Now, you've got to book 8 wrestlers, maybe managers in there, and extra flavor cards. So you could really use a quick add system. Now, players of Modern Mania GM, you'll be familiar with the quick add feature. And for those who aren't, it's during your match setup. There's essentially a row of headshots, of wrestler headshots on screen where you can just tap the headshot and it populates right into the match. So you don't have to go to the card screen and flip through all your cards and all that stuff. So that quick add feature is going to appear in the new game, but we've improved it. We've made it smarter. So that should be a fun thing to play with when you're booking these big 8-man matches, or any match really for that matter. And speaking of going into the card screen and swiping through cards or just hunting down an elusive card in general, I think a new feature that people are going to enjoy for that is a full-blown search feature. So we've got a little search bar on the card screen now where you can just use your keypad and start typing in, a character name, and the game, as soon as it recognizes the character you're typing, it'll instantly just pull up that card. So yeah, that's going to be quite useful for plenty of players in various instances when you're hunting that card down. Speaking of card management like that, the favorite system will be back, but we've enhanced it. So you'll be able to favorite all your cards, not just wrestlers. You'll be able to mark favorites on your entire collection, which will filter your entire deck of cards into like a really streamlined version. Yeah, and this new favorite system will actually be manageable on the checklist screen. So that's going to be a nice spot to go to have an overview of not only the cards you've got collected, but who's favorited, who's not, and just an easy way to designate and turn those favorites on and off without having to swipe through all your cards on the card screen. I could go on and on here, right? I can just keep on listing more and more features because there's tons more. There's so much more stuff that I'm excited to talk about and reveal. But, we've got plenty of time leading up to release. We've got a lot of opportunities to talk on this podcast and opportunities to start promoting things on our socials. So for now, we're going to put a lid on it, and hopefully we've given out some good, teaser material here in this episode. And in terms of telling you guys more and showing off more, we're looking ahead to right after the holidays. So at that point in time, whether it's end of December or early January of next year, this upcoming year, what we'll do is we're just going to go full steam ahead on hype season, right? We'll start rolling out promos on a regular basis, revealing character art, revealing features, showing off some gameplay footage that we're starting to accumulate as we build more features. Show off screenshots so you guys can get a look at the layouts and the new UI and all that good stuff. So, hang in there. Before you know it, we're going to be past the holidays and in hype season, and we're just all stoked to get to that point, right? We're looking forward. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coming from my end, the builds that I've seen of the game are amazing, and the new features are just really, really premium. So I'm excited for everyone to start seeing what we have in store.
come hype season.
Yeah, 2025 is going to be huge. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's some great stuff coming. I'm particularly excited about the commentators. Those guys are super fun.
All right, guys, I think that's enough for now on the new game. We've talked about our Mount Rushmores. We talked about the releases for 80s. We talked about the releases for modern. And we're super hyped about the new game. And there's more information coming about that, not only in the next episode, but on our socials. We're going to be promoting. Keep your eye out for the upcoming releases. Just, you know how we do around here. So that's enough talking for this episode. We got to get back to playing the game.
Until next time, we hope you have fun playing too. And as always,
If you're down for more mic spots,
stay tuned.
Are you a fan of Checkmate creative content? The most impactful way to show your support is by leaving our games 5-star ratings on Google Play and the App Store. That ensures we keep making more of the content you love and games you want to play. Following both 80s Mania Wrestling and Modern Mania Wrestling on Instagram, X, and Facebook is the best way to stay up to date with our latest news and character reveals. We invite you to share any and all feedback about your playing experience directly with us at support@80smaniawrestling.com or support@modernmaniawrestling.com.
This has been a Checkmate Creative production.